Unaware my husband didn't know I owned the landlord's company, he forced me out for his pregnant lover. What I did next crushed him. Her husband didn't just cheat. He stood in the doorway of a home he thought they were renting and forced his own wife out of a building she secretly owned. That night, Emily Carter stood in the hallway with her suitcase shaking at her side. Her husband, Tyler Brooks, blocked the doorway, his voice cold, his arm wrapped around a pregnant woman named Claire. "You need to pack your things," he said. "We're done. She needs this home more than you." Claire smirked, resting a hand on her belly like a trophy, eyes running over Emily like she was already gone. "Don't make this harder," Claire whispered loudly, just enough for Emily to hear. He thought she had nowhere to go. He thought she had no money. He thought she was powerless. What he never knew, what he never bothered to ask, was the truth Emily carried in silence. She was the sole beneficiary of the Hamilton Trust, the very landlord's company that owned the entire apartment building, including his unit, including his future. This is not just the story of a man who cheated. It is the story of what happens when the woman he underestimated stops hiding her power and uses it. Dear viewers, thank you for being here. Watching without subscribing is like letting Emily's voice fade back into the silence she lived in for years. When you subscribe, you stand with every woman betrayed, every quiet heart overlooked, and every soul who chose to rise instead of break. The sound hit Emily Carter like a slap. A cabinet door slammed so hard the walls shook, and for a split second, her heart jumped as if danger stood behind her. She froze in the hallway, gripping the edge of the counter. The morning apartment looked calm, but the echo of that slam carried something sharp, something restless. Emily was 31, soft-featured, gentle by nature, the kind of woman people described as quiet but kind. She never raised her voice, rarely argued, and carried her emotions like delicate glass. Carefully, thoughtfully, always protecting others before herself. But that violent slam wasn't hers. It came from Tyler, her husband. Though she didn't see him, he often moved around like a storm these days. But this scene would slow, soften, because this was not yet the day of destruction. This was the day the audience needed to know who Emily truly was before everything fell apart. She let out a slow breath and knelt by the dresser drawer she had opened earlier. Inside it, beneath neatly folded scarves, sat a sealed beige envelope. Its print was bold and official: Hamilton Trust. Beneficiary, Emily Carter, née Emily Hamilton. She reached toward it with gentle fingertips but didn't touch it yet. Not today. Emily had grown up in a modest home with her father, Richard Hamilton, a quiet man who built a small but steady property investment company from nothing. They weren't wealthy in the flashy sense. No mansions, no luxury, but they owned buildings, including the very apartment complex she now lived in with Tyler. Her father believed in steady growth, long-term security, and emotional honesty. A soft flashback drifted into her mind like a warm memory washed in morning light. Little Emily, no older than 8, sat on her father's lap as he signed a stack of trust documents at the dining table. His hand moved slowly, patiently, and he kissed the top of her head before whispering the sentence that shaped her entire adult life. "People treat you differently when they think you have money. Protect your heart, Emily. Not everyone you love will love you for the right reasons." The flashback dissolved gently. Emily blinked, remembering how those words guided her through every relationship, especially one. Tyler Brooks, her husband for 4 years, entered her life when she was 26. She met him at a small volunteer event. He was charming, confident, older by a few years, and quick to joke about life. Their first real conversation happened while they sorted donation boxes together. She remembered the exact moment they reached the subject of trust funds, because it shaped everything that was to come. Emily had smiled softly, sharing a small joke about real estate. Tyler laughed, then shook his head and said, "Trust fund brats never know real love. Everything's handed to them. I can't stand that type." He said it casually, not knowing that Emily's father had passed months earlier, leaving her the beneficiary of the Hamilton Trust, making her, by definition, the kind of person he claimed to dislike. In that moment, Emily had swallowed her truth. She told him nothing, and from that silence, a secret life began. The flashback faded, and she rose from the drawer, closing it carefully. After her father's estate settled, Emily had set up everything under Hamilton Trust with her maiden name on the paperwork and a separate account that quietly handled bills, including rent on this very unit. Tyler never saw those statements. They went straight to her private email in the trust office. Emily had never revealed her inheritance to Tyler, not even after marriage, because she feared he would look at her differently. She wanted love built on connection, not ownership or opportunity. Her devotion to Tyler grew in the years that followed. She kept their home tidy, supported his projects, listened to his worries, and believed their marriage was built on trust. Tyler knew her as a simple woman with a humble past, nothing more. He never questioned why rent was always on time, why repairs were handled easily, or why she never panicked about bills. He assumed luck. She allowed it. She checked the time. She needed to leave for work soon. Emily was meticulous about small tasks, adjusting a crooked picture frame, straightening a cushion, smoothing a wrinkle in the curtain. These habits weren't perfectionism. They were grounding, tiny rituals that helped her carry a past she never spoke about. A soft sigh cut through the air behind her. She turned. Tyler stood in the doorway, leaning against the frame with his arms crossed. He was 34, tall, handsome in a sharp-edged way, with eyes that once held warmth but now looked impatient, distracted, distant. His jaw was tight as if he were holding back irritation. He glanced at Emily's calm posture and said nothing, just watched her with an expression she couldn't read. Emily managed a small smile. Heading out soon. Do you need anything before I go? He didn't answer. Instead, he lifted his phone, checked a message quickly, then turned the screen slightly away from her and walked off, the tension in his shoulders leaving a strange heaviness in the air. The phone screen flashed just long enough for Emily to notice one detail she wasn't meant to see, a name she didn't recognize, a message he hid too quickly. Her stomach tightened. For the first time in a long while, Emily felt something shift, something small, quiet, but sharp enough to break the peace of the morning. And as she picked up her bag to leave, she felt a whisper of something colder waiting just beyond the next scene. She didn't know it yet, but Tyler's secret message was the first thread that would soon unravel everything she believed about her marriage. The argument came out of nowhere. Tyler's voice cracked through the apartment like a whip. "I can't do this anymore," he shouted from the living room. Emily spun around so fast she nearly dropped her bag. Her heart slammed against her ribs. The intensity in his tone was too sharp, too sudden for early morning. She hurried toward him, instinctively trying to bring calm, but her steps slowed when she saw him standing in the center of the room, fists clenched at his sides. Tyler Brooks, 34, her husband of 4 years, looked overwhelmed, angry, stressed, exhausted. His brows were tight, his jaw sharp, and the tension around him thick like a storm that refused to break. "Can't do what?" Emily asked quietly. He ran a hand through his hair. "The bills, Emily. The rent. My job barely covers anything. I swear I'm drowning here." His voice cracked at the end, desperate but strangely rehearsed. The intensity softened, and Emily's chest eased just a little. They had been here before, these emotional storms followed by quiet collapses. And every time, she had been the one who steadied the ground. But Tyler didn't know the truth. He didn't know the rent was covered, always covered, because the building belonged to her family trust. He didn't know the bills never piled up because she paid them discreetly before they could trouble him, scheduling payments through the Hamilton Trust account long before due dates. He didn't know she had inherited more than memories. He didn't know anything at all, and Emily had made sure of that. Her mind drifted, slowly, into the past, into the days when she first believed Tyler was the safest place she could put her heart. She was 26, standing by her father's grave, the world gray and hollow. Her father had been her anchor. Losing him cut through her like winter wind. Tyler approached her gently, placing a hand on her back. He wasn't a close friend then, just someone she knew through community work, but he stayed with her the entire service. He didn't push, didn't ask for anything. He simply stood beside her. For a girl who had lost everything solid in her life, his presence felt like warmth. A few weeks later, Emily returned to her father's house to pack his belongings. She had fought tears for hours until Tyler showed up at her door, uninvited but welcome. "I figured you shouldn't do this alone," he said softly. He didn't know the house, along with 5 other properties, would soon transfer into a trust under her maiden name. He didn't know the legal documents were still processing. He lifted boxes, pulled old photos from shelves, listened to stories about her father. Emily remembered how he looked at her then, with admiration, tenderness, and sincerity. She mistook it for pure love. One evening, while they ate takeout on the floor of her nearly empty childhood home, Tyler laughed at a story on TV about a wealthy heir. "Trust fund brats," he said. "They never learn real life. They never know real love. Everything comes easy." Emily had frozen. He didn't know her father had just left her the Hamilton Trust. He didn't know she was exactly what he mocked, and she instantly decided he never would. The flashbacks dissolved like soft colors fading off a canvas. Back in the present, Tyler paced the room with heavy footsteps. "I'm doing my best," he said dramatically. "I'm trying, Emily." She stepped closer, laying a gentle hand on his arm. "I know. We'll manage." He paused, looking at her as if she were a warm blanket on a cold night. Relief washed over his face. Too much relief, because Tyler didn't just see comfort, he saw convenience. Emily didn't know it yet, but he had built a version of her in his mind, a version who would always soften his failures, carry his weight, clean up his messes. A version who existed to make his life easier. How much of his love came from her heart? How much came from the fact that she made his problems disappear? Emily slowly walked to the counter and quietly paid the phone bill Tyler had been complaining about. She didn't even mention it. She never did. He said he loved my simplicity, she thought. He never questioned why things were always okay. As she smoothed the receipt into her planner, Tyler's phone buzzed. He snatched it up instantly. Emily noticed how fast he turned the screen away from her. So fast it almost slipped from his hand. Her breath caught. His shoulders stiffened. He typed something quickly, screen still hidden, then looked up with a smile far too tight. "Work message," he said. It wasn't, and Emily knew it. Her stomach dipped hard, because deep in her bones, something whispered that this message, this moment, was the start of cracks she had never seen before. And when Tyler's phone buzzed again, the name flashing on his screen would become the one thing Emily could never forget. The crash was so loud it jolted Emily from sleep, a heavy thud shaking the living room floor. Her heart jumped into her throat as she shot up from the couch, breath tight, mind racing with the worst possibilities. She hurried toward the sound, pulse pounding, only to find Tyler slamming the front door behind him. He didn't even look at her. He walked past with his jaw clenched, shoulders stiff, sweat beading on his forehead, as if he had been running or hiding. The intensity of the moment left her silent. She watched him drop his keys on the counter, his movements fast and restless. Tyler Brooks, her husband, the man she believed she knew better than anyone, was starting to become someone she didn't recognize. But after that explosive entrance, the energy slowly softened. Emily pulled a blanket tighter around herself and approached him carefully, not wanting to trigger another outburst. "You're home late," she said, gentle as always. Tyler didn't answer at first. Instead, he checked his phone with a quick swipe. Emily caught the brief flash of tension crossing his face before he forced a smile. "Work ran long," he finally replied. "Lots of paperwork." But Tyler was not the kind of man who enjoyed extra hours. He hated staying late. In 4 years of marriage, he had never been the one to volunteer for extra shifts or extra responsibility. And now suddenly he was leaving early, returning late, and guarding his phone as if it held secrets that could burn him alive. Emily watched him move across the room. He stopped in the hallway, looking down at his screen. His posture changed, slouched forward, protective. She saw guilt flicker across his expression. Then she heard the words that froze the air around her. "She doesn't suspect anything." His voice was low, almost a whisper, but clear enough that Emily felt it like a knife point against her spine. Her breath stopped. Tyler's head snapped up when he noticed her silhouette in the doorway. His face drained of color. He faked a cough and hung up immediately. "Emily, hey, didn't know you were awake." Her fingers tightened around the blanket. "Who were you talking to?" He gave a laugh that didn't reach his eyes. "Just Martin from work. He's dealing with something." It was a weak lie. Tyler was terrible at lying, especially when startled. His eyes darted left, then right, as if searching for a story that wouldn't collapse under its own weight. Emily nodded slowly, pretending to accept it. She didn't fight him. She didn't push. She had learned long ago that silence often revealed more truth than direct questions ever could. Later that evening, when Tyler went to take a shower, Emily decided to tidy the living room. Her hands moved through familiar motions, folding blankets, organizing cushions, anything to calm the growing storm inside her. She knelt beside the couch to pick up a remote when something small and metallic caught her eye. Something shiny wedged between the cushions. She reached in and pulled it free. A silver bracelet. Not hers. Not even close to anything she owned. Too elegant. Too delicate. Too unfamiliar. Emily preferred simple pieces. This one looked expensive, carefully chosen. Her heart thudded painfully. The room felt colder. Emily held it for a long moment, then placed it carefully on the coffee table, positioning it where Tyler would see it. She didn't shout. She didn't question. Just placed it plainly, silently, a quiet test. When Tyler walked out of the hallway and saw the bracelet, his reaction was tiny but unmistakable. His eyes widened, a quick involuntary flinch before he forced a neutral expression. "That yours?" he asked too quickly. Emily shook her head. "No." Tyler swallowed hard, lips parting as if he wanted to say something. But then his phone buzzed in his hand. He looked down. Emily saw it. The brief panic, the hesitation, the decision to step into the bedroom before reading it. When he returned, he tried to act normal, but the air between them had changed. It had cracked. They sat together on the couch, pretending to watch TV, but Tyler kept checking the hallway, as if he were waiting for something or someone. And Emily felt something she had not felt once in their marriage. Fear, not of him, but of what she was about to learn. Hours later, as they prepared for bed, Emily walked past the nightstand and saw Tyler typing quickly on his phone. She didn't breathe, didn't blink. She watched his thumbs move. Then she saw the message appear, clear as betrayal. "We need to talk," she's starting to notice. Her heart split wide open. Tyler tapped send, and Emily knew. This was only the beginning. And the next time she heard his voice behind a closed door, it wouldn't be just words that shattered her world. It would be the truth. The moment Emily opened the front door, the sound hit her like a slap, a sharp, breathy giggle coming from her bedroom. Not the TV, not a neighbor. Her bedroom. She froze, her body stiffening as every alarm in her chest flared at once. She had come home earlier than usual after leaving work sick with a headache, expecting an empty apartment. Instead, she stood in the silent entryway, holding her purse without feeling its weight. Another giggle drifted down the hall, lighter this time, playful, intimate. Her breath stuttered, her vision blurred around the edges. She stepped inside, pushed the door shut behind her without sound, and walked toward the hallway as if her feet were moving through water. The intensity in the air didn't fade. It grew thicker with every step. Halfway down the hall, she heard Tyler's low voice. Soft, warm, a tone he had not used with her in months. Then the unmistakable reply, a woman's voice. "I missed you today." Emily's heart cracked open. She reached the bedroom doorway and stopped. Tyler stood inside, his back facing her. His hand was wrapped around another woman's hand, a woman who couldn't be mistaken for anyone else. She stood close to him, leaning into him, her head tilted with familiarity. The woman turned slightly. Emily's stomach dropped. She wasn't just any woman. She was pregnant. Her belly was round, visible beneath a fitted blouse. Her hand rested protectively over it as she looked up at Tyler with a smug, knowing smile. Her name would be revealed soon, but even without knowing it yet, Emily understood one thing with total clarity. This woman was not a stranger. Not to Tyler, not to her home. Emily's fingers trembled. Her throat tightened. She felt the world tilt slightly under her feet. Tyler finally noticed her in the doorway. Instead of guilt, instead of panic, instead of shame, he stepped back from the pregnant woman and said in a voice disturbingly calm, "You need to pack your things." Emily blinked. "What?" Tyler didn't raise his voice. He didn't look away from her. He spoke as if discussing the weather. "You've been unhappy he said, rehearsed and emotionless. "And I've found someone who needs me more. It's better this way." "Better for who?" The pregnant woman stepped fully into view, her eyes drifting over Emily with open superiority. She placed her manicured hand on her belly, rubbing it slowly, as if displaying her importance. "I'm Claire," she said softly, but not kindly. Her voice carried smug confidence, marking her role clearly. The mistress, the woman who had taken Emily's husband. Emily felt her knees weaken. Claire tossed her hair back, smirking. "Tyler told me everything. How distant you two have been. How lonely you felt. We just connected. Connected." The words scraped through Emily like glass. Emily tried to breathe, but her chest felt too tight. Her world was cracking piece by piece, and all she had were questions shattering inside her. She took a step back. "Where am I supposed to go?" Tyler shrugged, actually shrugged, as if the woman he married for 4 years were a guest overstaying her welcome. "That's not my problem anymore." The finality in his tone hit harder than any scream could. Emily looked at Claire, who didn't bother to hide her satisfaction. The way she rubbed her belly made the message painfully clear. Tyler had chosen her, their future, their child. The injustice burned, the betrayal suffocated, the humiliation crushed. Emily swallowed hard, refusing to collapse before them. She would not let them see her break. "You're really doing this?" she whispered, not to win him back, but because shock made everything feel unreal. Tyler didn't flinch. "I've made my decision," he said. Claire stepped closer to him, touching his arm with gentle ownership. "We just want to start our family without tension, without her, without the wife." Emily steadied herself by holding the doorframe. This was no misunderstanding, no accident, no moment of weakness. This was intentional. And as she stood there, unable to breathe, unable to move, unable to speak, she heard Claire whisper, in a voice meant to be heard, "She'll be out tonight, right?" Emily's heart shattered. Tyler didn't answer. He didn't need to. Emily felt the final crack spreading through the life she once believed was safe. As she stepped back toward the hallway, she grabbed the nearest small suitcase from the closet with numb hands, already knowing he would not stop her. She packed what she could in silence. Documents, a few clothes, her purse, while Tyler and Claire stayed in the bedroom, not once coming to help or stop her. But as she turned slowly to leave the doorway, something in her eyes shifted, a spark of something colder and strangely steady. And when Emily stepped out of that bedroom, she had no idea that the home Tyler was throwing her out of was the very place she held silent power over, a truth about to rise from the shadows. The door slammed so violently behind Emily that the sound cut straight through her chest. It wasn't just loud, it was final, cruel, sharp like a blade. Tyler's hand had pushed the door closed with a force that made the frame rattle. She stumbled forward from the force of it, her suitcase wheels scraping against the hallway floor. For a moment she stood frozen, staring at the wood grain of the door that now separated her from the life she had built. Her own husband had pushed her out. Her home was locked behind her. Her marriage had ended with a single shove and no goodbye. The intensity of the moment swallowed the air in her lungs. Her fingers trembled around the suitcase handle. Every heartbeat echoed in her ears like a drum. And then, everything went quiet. No footsteps, no voices, no apologies, no second thoughts. Just a hollow, cold stillness. The hallway was long and empty, lit by soft yellow lamps that flickered slightly. Emily slowly sank onto her suitcase, her legs folding beneath her as if her bones could no longer hold her weight. She didn't cry. Not yet. There was too much shock pressing down on her. Her palms rested on her lap, numb. Her breathing was shallow, as though her body feared making any noise that might break the fragile control she had left. In the rush of packing, she had taken only what her hands could find quickly: some clothes, her documents folder, her purse. When her fingers brushed that familiar, thick cardboard inside her bag, she realized she had grabbed more than she consciously intended. Emily's mind drifted, not forward but backward, reaching for memories that had once given her strength, and they came like soft light cutting through darkness. She was 12 again, sitting on her father's old leather chair inside his small office. She remembered the warm scent of cedar and old papers. Her father, Richard Hamilton, looked at her with gentle eyes. He spoke the words that shaped every choice she'd made in her adult life. words she now heard with painful clarity. When someone shows you their true heart, protect your own. Back then, she didn't fully understand. Now she did. The warmth of the memory faded, replaced once again by the stale, lonely air of the hallway. Emily pulled her knees closer to her chest, resting her chin lightly on them. She stared at the closed apartment door, the same door she had walked through thousands of times with groceries, with work bags, with hopes for a future she believed she shared with Tyler. She replayed his voice in her mind. You need to pack your things. It's better this way. That's not my problem anymore. How easily he had said those things, as if ending their life together were a small decision, as if she had been a burden instead of a devoted wife, as if her love had meant nothing. Her chest tightened, but still no tears came. Shock held everything back, locking her emotions behind a wall she wasn't ready to break through yet. Minutes passed, or maybe an hour. Time had stopped meaning anything. Then Emily's hand moved on its own, slow, steady, almost automatic. She reached into her small purse, fingers brushing past tissues, lip balm, keys, until they found something solid. A folder, thick, old, slightly worn at the edges. She pulled it out and placed it gently on her lap. Hamilton Trust, beneficiary, Emily Carter, née Hamilton. The same folder she had tucked away in their bedroom drawer for years. She now remembered snatching it in those last minutes of packing, her body acting on instinct even while her mind was numb. Her inheritance, her identity, her hidden power. She stared at the label, and something tiny shifted inside her. Something not quite anger, not quite strength, but the faint spark of awakening. Tyler didn't know about this folder. He never knew she inherited the Hamilton Trust, the property company her father built from nothing. He never knew she owned multiple buildings, including this apartment complex. He never knew that every month, the rent he believed they struggled to pay went through her family trust, under her maiden name. And she had kept it that way because she believed in love. She believed in honesty. She believed in building a life based on heart, not money. But now she had seen Tyler's true heart. Her father's warning echoed louder. Emily's hands steadied. Her breathing shifted from shallow panic to slow, controlled inhales. She opened the folder with deliberate care, as though touching something sacred. Inside it were documents, property deeds, trust agreements, tenant lists, financial reports. She had avoided looking at these for years, choosing to focus on her marriage instead. But tonight felt different. Tonight the secret no longer felt like something she needed to hide. Emily leaned forward, eyes tracing the first page. Then, her eyes widened, not in fear, not in sadness, but in realization. She saw the line she had always skimmed over before. Primary beneficiary retains full authority over tenancy approval and termination for all Hamilton Trust residential properties, including Westridge Apartments. Her apartment building, Tyler's unit, Claire's new home. A realization so sharp it stole her breath. The contents of the folder reflected something she had never connected before. Something that now, in the aftermath of betrayal, made perfect, devastating sense. But the audience does not see the rest of the page. Not yet. Only Emily's expression, wide-eyed, stunned, awakening. Something inside her had clicked. Something powerful. Something dangerous. She closed the folder slowly, her lips parting in silent understanding. And in that moment, Emily realized her next step would not be to beg or to cry, but to rise. Emily pushed open the tall glass doors with a force she didn't know she had. The kind of force born from heartbreak and something dangerous rising beneath it. The doors banged slightly as they shut behind her, the sharp sound cutting through the quiet, polished lobby of the Hamilton Trust headquarters. It had been less than 48 hours since Tyler pushed her out. In that time, she had checked into a small serviced unit owned by the trust. A temporary apartment arranged easily with a single phone call to the office, using the authority she had never exercised before. The receptionist at the front desk snapped her head up. She was a woman in her early 40s, crisp suit, neat bun, alert eyes. As soon as she recognized Emily, surprise flickered across her face. "Ms. Carter," she said quickly, standing straighter. We weren't expecting you today." Emily didn't slow down. Her footsteps echoed across the marble floor, steady but cold, like someone who had just remembered what she was capable of. "I need to see Mr. Lawson," Emily said. "Yes, of course." The receptionist's voice softened into respect. "I'll let him know you've arrived." She picked up the phone immediately, her eyes following Emily with the kind of awareness only reserved for people who held real authority. Emily walked toward the elevator, her pulse steadying. The bright lights above reflected her expression. Calm, controlled, but carrying the shadow of something wounded. And then, as the elevator doors closed around her, the world slowed down, pulling her into a memory she had tried to bury. The day of her father's funeral. Black clothes, silent tears, cold wind. Emily stood alone beside the burial plot after the crowd left. Mr. Lawson, her father's trust attorney and one of his oldest friends, approached her with a folder clasped tightly in his hands. He spoke gently, respectfully. "Your father left everything to you, Emily. You are the sole beneficiary of the Hamilton Trust." Emily had barely understood through the haze of grief. Lawson continued, "The properties, including the West Ridge apartment building, will fall under your direct approval once you turn 30. You're 26 now. When the time comes, everything will be yours to control." She remembered nodding numbly, not realizing how powerful those words would become. The flashback faded. The elevator doors slid open with a soft chime. Emily stepped into a hallway lined with glass offices and silver plaques. Her name, Emily Hamilton Carter, was printed on several documents framed on the wall, commemorating her official status in the trust. When she entered Mr. Lawson's office, the older man stood from his desk immediately. He was in his 60s, silver hair, sharp eyes softened by years of loyalty to her father. "Emily," he said with warmth and concern, "you look troubled. What's happened?" Emily sat down across from him, folding her hands in her lap. Her voice was steady, but her eyes carried the weight of the night before. "I need to review the tenants of the West Ridge property." Lawson's brows lifted. "That's your residential building. Everything okay at home?" Her silence answered him. He hesitated. "This includes the unit registered under your husband, correct?" Emily nodded once. "Yes." Lawson leaned back, thoughtful. "Very well. You have complete authority to review all tenant files. That's your right as the beneficiary." He rose from his chair and walked to a filing cabinet, pulling out a thick folder with a label printed neatly across the spine. West Ridge, tenant records. He laid it on the desk between them. Emily swallowed. Her eyes dropped to the folder. It felt heavier than any weight she'd ever carried. Lawson remained standing, his voice low but firm. "Emily, if there's an issue, you need to know something." She lifted her eyes to him. Lawson tapped the folder. "Your husband has violated multiple clauses in his lease." Emily's breath hitched. "What kind of violations?" she asked. Lawson pushed the folder toward her. "Serious ones. We've sent several written notices to the listed tenant over the past months. Noise complaints, an unauthorized occupant, and payment discrepancies when he tried changing bank details. All of them give you full legal authority to take action as the owner." Her fingers hovered over the folder, not opening it yet. But the spark from last night, the awakening she felt in the hallway, burned brighter. "Emily," Lawson said softly, "you can take full action. On the property, and, if you choose, on the marriage." Emily picked up the pen and signed the authorization, formally instructing Lawson to begin eviction proceedings on the unit registered under her husband's name. Her eyes widened, not in fear this time, but in realization that whatever came next was irreversible. Her eyes widened, not in fear this time, but in realization that whatever came next was irreversible. And as her fingers tightened around that folder, Emily sensed she was about to uncover truths that would reshape everything she thought she knew about her marriage. The sound of Emily's door slamming shut earlier echoed again in her mind, a violent, unforgiving memory that returned with full intensity the moment she sat at her kitchen table. Not the old apartment. This was the small, quiet, temporary unit Hamilton Trust had assigned her after she spoke with Lawson. But the memory followed her here, as if the past refused to let go. Her hands shook as she dropped a stack of documents onto the wood surface, the slam of the papers nearly as loud as the door that had thrown her out. The intensity of it all hit her like a wave. Every cruel word, every cold stare, every betrayal. She forced herself to breathe. Slowly, the frenzy softened into a deep, quiet focus. Night surrounded the apartment, filling the corners with stillness, the only light coming from a small lamp that cast long shadows across the table. But Emily wasn't afraid of the dark anymore. The dark had taught her the truth. She spread the documents out carefully, one by one, page by page. Evidence. She needed evidence, and she had more than she realized. She opened her phone and replayed the moment Tyler had shoved her out. The video existed because, when his voice first raised that night, she had instinctively hit record and slipped the phone into her pocket, a habit she'd picked up after seeing stories about women needing proof when no one believed them. The camera caught everything. Claire standing behind him with a smug smile, Tyler pushing Emily into the hallway. Her breath trembled, but she didn't look away. This was the truth now, not her love, not his vows. This. She saved the video to a secure folder and continued. Next, she pulled out the lease violation list from the trust records. Tyler had broken several clauses: subletting without permission, unauthorized occupant, property modification without approval. Claire had practically moved in behind Emily's back, without registering or seeking consent. Violation after violation. Her hand moved to another stack, financial documents she had kept over the years. Each one told a story she never wanted to admit. Tyler drained shared accounts. Tyler hid purchases. Tyler borrowed money he never repaid. Tyler relied on her to handle the bills. She had covered all of it, quietly, gently, thinking she was helping her husband. But now she saw the pattern clearly. Financial abuse was still abuse. Her jaw clenched. And suddenly, another memory crashed into her like a fist. Tyler had stood in their old living room, frustrated by a minor expense. He snapped, "You couldn't survive without me, Emily. You need me." Back then, she had believed him. Now the memory made her jaw tighten so hard it hurt. He was wrong. He had always been wrong. A knock pulled her from the memory. Emily opened the door to find Mr. Lawson, her trust attorney, standing beside a petite woman in her late 30s. Sharp suit, intelligent eyes, a calm confidence that came from years of winning battles. "Emily," Lawson said gently, "this is Ms. Hartman." Ms. Hartman extended her hand. "I'm a divorce attorney. Mr. Lawson thought you might need representation. He briefed me on the trust and the lease situation, with your permission earlier." Emily's throat tightened, but she stepped aside and let them in. Hartman sat across from her at the kitchen table, scanning the documents. She took her time, no rushing, no assumptions. Her eyes moved sharply from paper to paper, phone to file. Finally, she looked up. "Emily," she said, voice firm, "this is more than enough. You have video evidence, financial records, and legal violations. You will win everything." Emily didn't smile. She didn't cry. She simply nodded. Hartman continued, "You have legal grounds not only for divorce, but for full control over all shared assets. He will be held accountable. And because you're the property owner, his eviction process will move faster than usual." Emily swallowed, her hands tightening around the edge of the table. Hartman studied her carefully. "You've been quiet for too long. Now is the time to speak." Lawson placed a supportive hand on Emily's shoulder. Hartman reached into her briefcase and pulled out a thick stack of papers. The divorce packet. She slid it across the table, the sound sharp in the silence. The intensity of the moment returned, heavy, final, electric. Hartman met Emily's eyes, steady and strong. "Are you ready to serve him?" Emily stared at the papers. Her breath caught. Her fingers inched forward, and something inside her shifted from numbness to resolve. Because the moment Emily lifted that pen, she had no idea the confrontation waiting at the apartment would be far more dramatic than a simple delivery of documents. Emily stepped out of the black sedan with a force that shook through her legs, the kind of intensity that only heartbreak mixed with resolve could create. It had taken a short but relentless stretch of days. Legal notices drafted, records updated, and urgent court orders secured using the pile of violations and ownership documents she held. The air outside the apartment complex stung her lungs as she inhaled sharply. She wasn't alone. To her left stood Sheriff Dalton, a tall man in uniform with calm authority in his eyes. To her right stood Mr. Jacobs, the property manager of West Ridge, a quiet, middle-aged man carrying a clipboard filled with documents, including notices he had already mailed to the unit the day before. They flanked her like two silent pillars. This was not a visit. This was an execution of a decision already made. Sheriff Dalton adjusted his hat. "You ready, ma'am?" Emily nodded, though her fingers trembled slightly. The building looked the same as ever, but today it felt foreign, like a stage where a truth long hidden was finally stepping into the light. They walked down the hallway where she had once cried, once broken, but this time her footsteps were steady, sharp, decisive. They stopped in front of the door she'd been pushed out of. Sheriff Dalton knocked firmly. Bang! 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 The intensity of the sound echoed through the building, vibrating against Emily's spine. Inside, muffled voices scrambled, followed by heavy footsteps. The door swung open. Tyler Brooks stood there, irritation already twisting his face. "What now, Emily?" He folded his arms, pretending control he no longer had. Then he noticed the sheriff. His posture stiffened. Sheriff Dalton calmly opened a folder and pulled out a document. "Tyler Brooks?" "Yeah," Tyler answered, confused. The sheriff held out the paper. "You are being evicted for violations of lease terms under an emergency enforcement order." Tyler scoffed, actually laughed. "Evicted? For what? This is ridiculous." His laugh stopped abruptly when he saw the letterhead. Hamilton Trust Properties. The color drained from his face. His eyes darted from the sheriff to the property manager, to Emily standing silently behind them. "Wait!" He choked on the word. "Emily, what is this?" She stepped forward, her expression calm, almost serene, the calm of someone who had finally stopped being afraid. "You said I didn't matter," Emily said softly, "but my decisions do." Sheriff Dalton stepped aside so Tyler could see clearly. Emily didn't blink. Tyler staggered back, bumping into the wall. You own this? Since when?" Mr. Jacobs answered. "Mr. Carter has been the legal beneficiary and decision-maker for the building since her 30th birthday. All prior notices about your violations were sent to this address." Tyler looked as if the world had tilted beneath him. "This is a joke. Tell me this is a joke." Emily didn't speak. He kept rambling. No, you can't do this. I live here. I have a family now." As if summoned, Claire appeared behind him. She wore loose loungewear that showed her pregnant belly clearly. Her face twisted with panic. "What's happening?" she demanded. Tyler shoved the eviction notice at her. "She's kicking us out," he shouted. Claire turned to Emily, eyes wide and pleading. "Where are we supposed to go? I'm pregnant." Sheriff Dalton didn't flinch. "That is not the landlord's responsibility, ma'am. You were never registered as a legal occupant." Claire's voice cracked. "You can't do this." Emily's gaze didn't waver. Tyler made his choice, and he broke the rules that kept this home. Claire grabbed Tyler's arm, her voice shaking. "Do something!" Tyler turned back to Emily, resentment burning in his eyes. "You're doing this because you're bitter, because I found someone who needs me." Emily's voice remained steady. "You broke the lease. You broke our marriage. Actions have consequences." Tyler took a step toward her, fury rising. "You can't do this to me." Emily turned slowly, her face unreadable. "Watch me." The hallway went dead silent. Claire gasped. Tyler's jaw fell open. Even the sheriff's brows flicked upward. But Emily was done explaining, done defending, done breaking. Sheriff Dalton cleared his throat. "Mr. Brooks, you have 48 hours to vacate the premises under this order. Failure to comply will result in forced removal and possible legal penalties." Claire whispered harshly to Tyler, "We need to fix this." "Fix it." But Tyler couldn't look away from Emily. His voice came out a broken whisper. You planned this?" Emily didn't answer, because this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. And as Tyler's shocked breathing filled the hallway, Emily knew the next step would not be eviction, but the courtroom, where the truth would cut even deeper. The gavel slammed down so hard that the entire courtroom jolted, the sharp crack slicing through the murmurs of people waiting for the next case. The sound struck Tyler Brooks like lightning. His shoulders flinched, his eyes flared, and the confidence he once carried drained in an instant. Case number 3287, the judge announced firmly. Brooks versus Carter. Weeks had passed since the eviction notice, filled with filings, responses, and lawyer meetings. Today was not a surprise. It was the day everything became official. Extreme tension filled the room, tightening every breath. Emily sat beside her lawyer, Ms. Hartman, her hands folded neatly in her lap. She looked calm, controlled, and heartbreakingly quiet. But the strength beneath her stillness showed in the steady rise and fall of her chest. Tyler sat across from her at the opposing table, sweaty and nervous. Claire sat behind him, arms crossed over her pregnant belly, her face tight with frustration. She had come to support Tyler, but now she looked irritated just being here, glancing around as if judging the entire process. The judge adjusted his glasses. Mr. Hartman, you may proceed. Hartman rose smoothly, her voice sharp but respectful. Your Honor, today we bring forth clear documentation of unlawful eviction attempt, emotional manipulation, and financial exploitation. She placed the first piece of evidence on the screen, the hallway video, Tyler pushing Emily, Claire smirking behind him. The courtroom fell silent. Emily's breath quivered, not in fear, but in remembered pain, but she held her posture. Tyler jumped up. That's taken out of context. I didn't push her, I was... Sit down, Mr. Brooks, the judge snapped. Tyler sank back, red-faced. Hartman continued. Next, screenshots of messages where Mr. Brooks attempts to remove the legal tenant from her own residence without notice. She clicked. The messages appeared. She'll be out tonight. She won't fight back. She has nowhere to go. Claire shifted uncomfortably behind him. Tyler tried to whisper, it was just talk. Hartman ignored him and placed the next evidence folder on the judge's bench. Lease violations, unauthorized occupant, subletting without approval, property damage responsibility, all committed by Mr. Brooks while his mistress lived there without registration. Emily kept her eyes trained on her hands, fighting the sting at the back of her throat. The judge lifted a brow. Mr. Brooks, do you have an explanation? Tyler stood, raising his palms. Your Honor, she's exaggerating. I was under stress. She was emotionally distant. Hartman cut in. If she was distant, sir, why were you living with another woman without approval and hiding funds from your wife? Gasps rose in the courtroom. Claire stiffened. What? She hissed. Hartman lifted one last document. Financial withdrawals made by Mr. Brooks from their shared account without Mrs. Carter's consent. Funds he then used to support an undisclosed relationship? Claire stood abruptly. You told me you didn't have a wife anymore. You told me she left. Tyler's face collapsed. Claire, please. But Claire shook her head, her voice sharp. You said the money problems were her fault. You lied to me. People whispered across the benches. Tyler looked like a man drowning. Hartman approached the judge one final time. Your Honor, in light of this evidence, we request full divorce, asset protection for Mrs. Carter, and reversal of financial responsibility. She has independent wealth that is separate property through her trust. We ask that he not touch a single part of it. The judge didn't hesitate. Divorce granted. Restraining order granted. Financial judgment granted. Mr. Brooks, you are barred from accessing any Hamilton Trust assets or Ms. Carter's personal accounts. You will receive no spousal support. Tyler's mouth fell open. No, please, Your Honor. The judge hit the gavel. Next case. Emily felt her breath release slowly, like she had been underwater for years and finally surfaced. Tyler stumbled toward her as she stood to leave. Emily, you can't do this. We can fix. Hartman stepped between them. Court order says you're not to approach her. Tyler froze, desperation rising. Emily didn't even look at him. She walked past, her chin lifted. Her silence louder than any words she could have spoken. Outside the courthouse, people who knew Tyler, neighbors, old co-workers, acquaintances, stared at him with expressions that ranged from disappointment to disgust. Word traveled fast. The story had been whispered through the building, through the neighborhood, through mutual acquaintances. Claire stormed toward him, fury blazing in her eyes. You promised me stability. You promised me a future. You said everything was under control. Tyler lifted his hands weakly. Claire, wait. I just need time. She stepped back as if he were poison. You ruined my life too. I'm done. She turned, walked away, and didn't look back. Tyler watched her vanish down the steps, his entire life unraveling in front of him, piece by piece. Emily stood farther away, watching with unreadable eyes. She didn't celebrate. She didn't smile. There was no joy in watching someone fall, just justice. But justice wasn't finished yet, because Emily still had one last destination to visit, one final act that would silence every ghost Tyler left behind. The keys hit Emily's palm with a sharp metallic clink. So sudden and loud it echoed in her chest like the final strike in a long war. That sound held intensity, closure, and the last trace of the life she was stepping away from. She stood at the entrance of the apartment building, the same building where she had once been pushed out, humiliated, heartbroken. The same building where Tyler and Claire had spoken to her like she was disposable. But now, the sun poured warm light across her shoulders. The wind brushed gently against her hair. And Emily stood there, not as a victim, not as a wife discarded, but as the woman who owned the very ground beneath her feet. Her posture was straight, calm, unshaken. The building looked the same brick walls, same windows, same doors. But everything felt different now. The heaviness she once carried here had lifted, replaced by a quiet, powerful peace that wrapped around her like soft armor. Emily exhaled slowly, letting her shoulders relax. She stepped forward, the morning light catching her eyes, making them shine. This was where she fell. Now it was where she would rise. She walked toward the entrance, her footsteps soft but sure. Inside the lobby, the property manager, Mr. Jacobs, greeted her with a polite nod. He knew who she was now, not just a tenant's wife, but the beneficiary, the owner, the heartbeat of the building. "Everything is ready, Miss Carter," he said. "The paperwork has been signed. Their unit is officially vacant and under your control again." Emily gave a gentle nod. "Thank you, Mr. Jacobs." The building was quiet, peaceful, a far cry from the chaos it once held. Emily walked down the hallway she'd sat in after being pushed out. Back then, she had been numb, crushed, lost. She had thought her life was ending. She now knew it had only been shifting. She reached her old apartment door. The paint was still slightly chipped along the edges, the doorknob a little worn, a place that had once been her home. She unlocked it with the key and stepped inside. The air felt warmer than she expected. The walls were empty now. Tyler and Claire were gone. There were no memories left except the ones she carried in her heart. She walked slowly inside, touching the wall lightly, her fingers gliding across the cool surface. This was once the place where she cooked meals, folded laundry, laughed, cried, and loved. It had seen her devotion, it had seen her heartbreak, and now it would see her purpose. Emily closed her eyes for a moment, letting a soft breath escape her lips. Then she smiled. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small folder, this time not filled with evidence or legal documents, but with donation forms. A women's support program, one that helped women recovering from betrayal, emotional abuse, and sudden displacement. The same kind of pain Emily herself had endured. She handed the folder to Mr. Jacobs, who had followed her inside. "This unit," she said gently, "I want it donated to the program permanently. Let it help someone who needs a new beginning. We'll set the rent to symbolic, and the trust will cover the rest." Mr. Jacobs blinked, touched. "That's incredibly generous, Miss Carter." Emily shook her head softly. "It's necessary. Some storms are necessary. They wash away what we should have left long ago." Her voice held calm strength, the kind that comes only after surviving something that should have broken you. She walked out of the apartment for the last time, leaving its door open, a symbolic gesture of release. Emily stepped back into the sunlight, the gentle breeze lifting strands of her hair. She didn't look back. Not once. There was no reason to. As she walked down the sidewalk, every step felt lighter, her posture tall, her eyes full of quiet certainty. A faint smile touched her lips. She whispered to herself, with a voice that finally sounded whole, "He tried to destroy me, but he only revealed who I was meant to become." The camera would slowly pull away here, capturing her silhouette walking confidently into her new future, unburdened, unbroken, unstoppable. And as the final soft notes of the story faded, her narrator voice returned with gentle sincerity. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed creating it. Like, share, and comment on the lessons you've learned. Let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. See you in my next video.